Hi all, this is Ravish. So this is a continuation video to the last one where we saw how the tool can be used by the developers to automate the deployments of update sets and custom scripts. Please watch the previous video to get some context on this video. So this video is to install the tool. So for that you need to go to the share portal of ServiceNow where I have uploaded this tool. The links are in the video description. So you need to log into the share portal and you will see the download option. So download this tool. So there are two parts of this. One is the main app and the second one is the dependency app. So both the apps are dependent on each other. So you can find the link over here. So this is the dependency app. So you also need to download this dependency app and install both of these. So first you need to install the main app and then you need to install the dependency app. So I've downloaded both of these in my local disk. Now let's start the installation. So I have three environments for this demo. So here's my dev environment, my test environment, and my production environment. So I'll be starting the installation in my dev environment, then I'll be doing it in the test and then in production. So for that, before we do the installation, there needs to be some prerequisites in all your environments. So the first prerequisite is that we need to have the system property glide update set auto preview as true. So let's check for that. So this is the property that I'm referring to. So what this does is that if you pull any update source, any update sets via an update source, if you turn this property as true, then those update sets, once they are loaded, they'll be automatically previewed by the system. So this is very important because the tool relies on update source to bring in update sets from any instances, and also it relies on ServiceNow to auto preview them. So once you have turned this on and set this property as true, the next prerequisite is that you need to have integration your user account in all your instances. So what I've done is I have created this test integration account called my test integration, and I've given it admin role. So you can see that if admin role does not work for you, you can get granted a lower role and see if the integration works or not. But before doing that, I would recommend that you check if the tool works with the admin role and then play around with some lower roles. So this account, it will be used to retrieve the updates sets through the update sources, and it will also be used to commit scripts and update sets in this environment. So it needs the basic roles to perform those operations. So once you have this ID installed, the third prerequisite is to have update sources defined in all your non-production and production instances, except the dev instance, or unless if you expect to pull the update sets into a dev from some other instance, you can also define the update source here. So the test instance over here, it needs an update source to the dev environment. So I have already defined it. Do a test connection, and the production instance over here, it needs an update source for the test instance. So let me do a connection test. Yeah, it looks good. So I believe we are done with the prerequisites. Now let's install this tool in the development environment. So before this, I would like to explain this concept of orchestrator and non-orchestrator instances. So there will be one environment in all your ServiceNow environments, which will be performing this orchestration to commit scripts and update sets. When I say orchestration, it does not use ServiceNow orchestrating workflows activities. It's just that it uses these logics through execution of scheduled jobs, and it s- uh, interacts with other non-production instances over REST APIs and performs those executions. So for that, you need to designate one instance as an orchestrator instance. So for this demo, I can have the production instance as the orchestrator, but but you can also have a non-prod as the orchestrator. So for now, I would copy the name of the production instance, and let me first install the update sets in this instance. So in the dev environment, I've already uploaded those update sets. So you would see the all these update sets installed. So I have uploaded the main application and also the dependency application. So the dependency application, it's this second update set over here, and the first main application, it's all batched together in this update set. So I'll click on this. So I've already previewed it. We'll commit this batch. So once this is committed, we need to commit the dependency app, which is a standalone update set. So, yeah, I think it's almost done. Close this. Go back to retrieve update set. And this is my dependency app, called first time install only. So it's separate from the main app because this update set, it contains some properties and also some jobs. So in case if there is a future upgrade to the main app, so you don't if you again install the same update set, it would wipe out all those job configurations and also the property definition. That's why we have kept it separate. So if the main app gets upgraded, you don't need to install this. This is all for first time install only, or if the dependency app gets upgraded. So let me, as this is a first time install, let me install this update set on commit. So yeah, now that the updates are installed, should create this application on the left navigation called Service Guru Dash Deployment Management, and 3 modules under that: component tracker. So this is the table which tracks all the components, all the update sets and scripts. But as I'm not using this development environment as the orchestrator instance, this table would be empty in this instance. So I'll click on non-orchestrator properties, change my scope, and over here we have some couple of properties that we need to set. The first one, it asks, do you want to enable a check which would implement best practices? So clearly say yes. So if this is yes, what it means is it will activate business rules on the local updates table and customer updates table. So what this business rule does is, if you close an update set and after that a developer tries to rename that update set, the business rule would abort that action. Similarly, if you try to reopen a closed update set, then the business rule would abort that action too. And also if developer tries to change the customer updates of a closed update set, then that action will also be aborted. So it's very important that you turn this property on, because this tool relies that once the update set gets closed, it's not reopened again, or the customer updates are not manipulated. And also the name of the update set, it's used as the unique key to identify the update sets in different instances. So that's why we should not be changing the name of the update sets. So after that, the second one asks what is the orchestrating instance. So as said that I would be using my production instance as my orchestrating, so I would copy the name, paste it over here. The next one is uh, asking if we want to enable application logging. So all the logs will be recorded in the syslog table. So these are so there are two types of logs that this tool generates. One is in the syslog table, and one is in the application logging table. So this is like if all the commits of update sets and scripts of the target instance gets recorded. So turn on this property over here, click on save. For the orchestrator instance, I won't be setting any properties, as I don't intend to use the dev instance as the orchestrating ones. So I would move ahead to a test instance. So I need to do the same, install the update sets first. So for the convenience of this demo, I've already installed all the update sets. And you also need to ensure that you have the user profile ready over here, which will be used for the integration. So I've already created this test account in my test environment. So let's, let's go to the property definitions. So I don't intend to use test as the orchestrating one, so I click on non-orchestrator instance, change the scope. So similarly, as we change the properties in the dev environment, I would say yes to this, enter the orchestrator instance name and say yes to this, and click on save. So we're done with the setup for the dev and the test environment. Now let's move on to the production environment. So let's verify if the integration account is in place. So yes, I have the integration account in production, and it also has the role. Now let's check the update sets. So I've already committed those update sets in the production environment. Now let's move ahead. So before we do any property definitions, I'll first check the schedule jobs. We need to turn the schedule jobs on in the production environment, because we intend to use production as the orchestrator instance. So type schedule job. Search for name contains guru, and it will list 4 jobs over here. So let me add few columns like repeat until world, run as. So here we see what is the repeat interval of these jobs. So let me first change the run as to my integration user. Change scope first. So I've changed the run as. Now this is the first job which you see, that is service guru dash auto updates at code promotion. That's the main job which runs and does all the commits. So let's activate all these jobs. And it's very crucial that you set a repeat interval. So by default I've set this up as 10 minutes. Depending on how fast you want the deployment, you can also set it up for like every 5 minutes, but I think 10 minutes is good enough. But it's very crucial that you keep this repeat interval and also test it out, like how fast the deployment happens in your non-production environment. So if, for example, if your repeat interval is like every 1 hour, so what this means is that this job will be executed every 1 hour, and it would commit around 2 to 3 update sets every 1 hour. So in case if you're tagging a change request to this deployment and the deployment window of that change request is for around 2 hours and you have 20 update sets to be committed, so that means in 2 hours, as it's being executed just twice, this job would commit around 6 update sets, and it won't be able to commit the rest of the update sets. So that would be a failed deployment. So that's why I recommend that you should test this change window and the repeat interval in your test environment. B, you need to have the repeat interval as at least as 10 minutes. And C, you should have your change windows sufficiently wide enough so that all the update sets get committed. So let me change this back to 10 minutes. So I think we're good with our job definitions. Now let's do the property definitions. So I tap Guru and I click on orchestrated properties. So click on say yes to this one. Set the orchestrator environment. Say yes to this one. Click on save. Now I go to the my bad. I'll go to the orchestrator instance properties. So the first one, it asks, should we turn on the integration? So I would leave this off for now and come back to this later. The next one asks, should we enable application logging in the syslog app scope table? So this would send all the pulse of this integration into this syslog app scope table. Would recommend you turn this on. And the next one asks this, do you want to enable digest emails which gets sent every 2 hours? So I would enable this. So what this email is, it sends any errors that it sees, like if any updates that is not being committed, or it also gives a summary of all the scripts that get executed, like what output messages got recorded in that. And it also gives a summary of all the components that got deployed in the last 2 hours. So turn this on. It's very crucial that if you want this email, you also need to turn on the application logging bit, because this email, it's basically an aggregation of all the logs which are captured in the application logs for the last 2 hours. So let's so I'm keeping these two properties on. The next one is select the environments which need a change request for any deployments. So by default it's none. So that means all your deployments would not need any change request. So you have 4 options over here. The second option is production only. So what this means is change request is only applicable for production deployments. The third one is all environments except QA and dev. So if you're deploying this to like a pre-production environment or UAT environment or production, then change ticket is a must. Or else, if you're deploying it in QA environment, change ticket is not needed. And the last one is all environments except dev. So this means for all deployments to all environments, even the QA, UAT, production, pre-prod, change ticket would be mandatory, except for the dev environment. So those are the 4 options that you have. For now, I think I'll just keep it production only. The next one is the custom change request query. So what this means is it tells the tool like what is a valid change ticket that it needs to look for when it's about to commit an update set. So to explain that, let me open the change table over here. So my ideal change ticket would be the one which is active and the status in implement. Click on run. So this is the state I want, but you're free to select your own. And I would right click over here, copy query, come back to my properties page and paste it over here. So what this means is that the tool would constantly check if the change meets this criteria or not. So example, if you can always attach a change which is in draft phase to the deployment, and it would check during the deployment if it meets this criteria or not. So it's so if the change ticket gets approved, then those components will be committed. But if the change management due to any reasons they do not approve it, so it will obviously not meet the state. So that then the tool would not commit those components. And also in this way, like if you have a custom field, example u underscore ecab approved is true. I only want the components to be committed when the change tickets this attribute, that is ecab approved, is true. Then you can have this query fed in, and it's very important to test this query, because if you like example use an invalid attribute, like you have a typo, in that case I'm not sure how the tool will execute. So it's important that you test this out, that it's working fine, and you apply a valid query over here. So keep it as active true for now. So the next one is choose the mode of dealing with errors and warnings. So this one, it says that what the tool should do if it sees an error warning during deployment of update sets. So we have four modes over here. The first mode is manual mode. So what in this mode, the tool it checks if it sees an error warning, it won't do anything. It would wait for the developers to resolve those errors and warnings. And once though it does not see any error or warning, then it will move ahead and commit that update set. So uh, that's how the manual mode works. The next is smart accept mode. So in this mode, if it sees an error warning for the first time, it would wait for the developer to resolve it. And once that's resolved, then it would commit those update sets. So it's very similar to manual mode, but the difference is, so example, I saw some errors and warnings in my test environment. I resolved it, and then the tool would commit those update sets. Now the tool would also capture what actions I took, like did I accept those errors or did I skip it. Then it will store it in those component tracking table. And during production deployments, if it sees those same errors and warnings again, then it would perform those same actions. So instead of me doing those actions, the tool would do it for me. So that's the smart accept mode. It always takes the knowledge it captured from the previous instance. So example, if you have one, two, three, four instances, then 3 would always look for the knowledge captured in 2, and 4 would always look for the knowledge captured in 3. So, and the fourth, my third mode is skip all. So in this, the tool directly skips all the updates, all the errors and warnings that it sees. The fourth mode is accept all, where it accepts all the errors and warnings that it sees. So I would choose a smart accept for now. The next properties are request approvals are required for a non-production deployment. So if you saw the last video, the uh, service request which gets created, it creates approval. So for non-production, you can keep it off or you can keep it on. But if it's a production deployment, then the approval will always be requested, and irrespective of what value this property has. So for now, I would keep this off. And moving on to the next one, says enter all the non-orchestrator environments which will be part of this integration. So I would copy the name of my dev environment and use comma as a delimiter, and I would the test environment. So it's very crucial that you enter it in proper format without any spaces or special characters, and use comma as a delimiter. The next one is ask what is the production environment name. So copy the production environment and feed it over here. The next one is enter the instance which will orchestrate the commits. So it is again my production instance. The next is the shared non-orchestrated instance credentials which will be used for the integration. So that would be delete this account and the password. So by default, these credentials will be shared across all the non-orchestrated instances. So the test and the dev would use the same credentials, and the production has its own set of set of credentials. So for now, I've used the same one. If you want to have a separate set of credentials for different non-production environments, that detail is captured in the FAQ document, and you can refer how to override these settings and use unique credentials for different environments. The next one is ServiceNow group name for operations team, which will be acting as reviewers for the service request. So use as application development. So this is the ServiceNow group, which will be acting as a reviewers when that service request gets created. So it's very crucial that this group is active in ServiceNow, and this name is found in the user group table. And this group should also have active members present. If those checks do not pass, the workflow would not move ahead and it would close the ticket. The next one is the ServiceNow group, which will receive the digest emails. So again, for now, I will keep it as application development. So this is the team which will receive those digest emails every 2 hours, like if any updates did not get committed, or if it got committed, or if there is any other deviations. The next is the release table name. So for that, it would be rm_release. So if you use the enterprise release management plugin, you can use the rm_release table as your release table for this tool. Or if you don't have that plugin active, you can always create a custom task table and use that table name over here. So for this demo, I will use a change request. Keep in mind that if you create a custom task table, if you create a custom table, it needs to be inherited from the task. A standalone table would not do. So the last one is the custom release query to identify like what is a valid release, what's an invalid release. So for now, I'm keeping it as active as true, and it's very important that you test and provide a valid query, or else the tool may not execute correctly. So click on save. So the last one is to turn on this property. I would click say yes to this and click on save. So if you ever need to turn this tool off due to any reasons in the orchestrator environment, this is the property that you need to turn it off. Or alternatively, you can go to the schedule jobs and also turn the schedule jobs off. So believe that is second last step, and the last step over here is going to maintain items and searching for the catalog. That is service grow dash automated deployment. So this is a catalog, and what you need to do is you need to tag it to appropriate categories that you use, so that it's visible under your categories which you regularly use it. And if you wish, you can also control the visibility, so that example it's only available to the developers of the ServiceNow team and not to anybody else. So that is the deployment, that is the installation steps, and the links are in this video, and I'm also posting the GitHub link. So if you see any errors or if you want to post any enhancements, you can post it on GitHub. So please feel free to use this and let me know your feedback. Thank you all.